good just to stop and think about all the stuff we did, because I know that was a little bit of a rough start to our morning, but like we accomplished a lot of really cool things, right? We started creating some data, we started pulling out just the bits of it that we wanted, and we created a function that we could use in the controller that we could call in the view to return a different thing, to return specifically the thing that we wanted. Like that's a lot of cool progress. We can do a lot with that. I know it does not feel like that right now, but that's like good stuff, right? So now we're going to start talking about user input. Obviously, we don't have an API hooked up right now, so we're not going to save this information, but we can set this form up so that when we have the API, then we can do that, and we have this structure in place, and then we can start sort of playing around with our user input. But a reminder that since this isn't a real data source, nothing's going to persist, right? You refresh the page and all the new things you create are going to be gone, so don't pour your heart and soul into it unless it's like, I don't know, a burn book of things you hate or whatever. But yes, so let's go ahead and start creating some inputs so we can create a new blog post. So again, copy pasta because I'm really helpful. So I'm going to copy this over into that same view. Tomorrow we will create more views. This is daily curriculum and not what you want. Hey, tomorrow we will create more views so you can separate these out into different pages. Today we're going to create more structures so you can create more pages in the meantime. So in our home.html, and again, it's very important that it is inside this div that tells us what the controller is, otherwise it does not know where to look for this information. I'm going to go ahead and put this at the top so it's easier to look at, but you can put this wherever you want. Probably not in one of the other repeats, but whatever floats your boat. So I'm going to paste this in and we'll talk about what we just did. So let me do that so we can just see the stuff we created. So this, immediately below it right now is this ng repeat post in posts. So I created a div. I gave it a class form just to sort of remind us, hey, our form lives in here, and for styling later if we want to style this. I created a title. That's just an input type of text, a contents with an input type of text, and then tags, which is an ng repeat tag in tags. It has an input type of checkbox and a value of tag.id. And it says the tag right here. It shows what that name is. So just to go back over that again, this is not hooked up to anything. So all we're creating are these boxes for users to put input in. We have a regular box for title, regular box for content, and for tags, we just have another ng repeat, which again, it looks at this array that we already have. It creates a new span and all of the elements inside of it for each item in this array. And for each item in this array, we're creating an input with the type of checkbox, and it has the value of the tag.id, which I think we don't, anyway, that doesn't matter. And then we're displaying the name of the tag just so the user can see what that does. So let's take a look at what this looks like. We'll go back over to our local host and refresh, and hey, there's a title and some content and some tags. Yay, and nothing happens when you click them. It just shows some stuff, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is not a thing. It's just empty boxes. But we have this set up now. Cool. So we have these input values on the div. We have a checkbox for every tag. So in AngularJS, a lot of the time when you're controlling inputs, when you're gathering new inputs, you can use this model to sort of grab things together. Just like in Rails, when you're creating a new post, when you're creating something new in Rails, you'll have like your new page will create like a post.new, like at post equals post.new, and then in your values for your form, you attach it to this model. We'll do the same sort of thing here. Even though it's not the strict sort of model, we'll still create a new model to attach these new values to. So we'll go back over to our layout.js. I'm going to tab over just real fast so I don't forget what's going on here and say the wrong thing. New post. Okay, so first we go back to our controller. We're inside our controller. You can put this wherever you want. Typically I put all my variables at the top of the controller and then functions at the bottom, but right now we'll just go ahead and put it at the bottom just for clarity so it is easy to see what is what and follow along. So right now we are outside the scope.getTagName function we created earlier, but we're still inside the controller. We still have this sort of controller closure right here. So I'm just going to do scope.newPost equals, and then we'll make an empty object and we'll say, you don't have to put things in here. I'm going to go ahead and just say title blank. Content, whoops, needs to be in quotes, content, like empty string, tag, tag IDs is an empty array. Cool. So we have this new post. And we've created it, and since it's a scope.newPost, it's now accessible to the view. It's now a model, which means a variable that is accessible between the view and the controller. So have the scope.newPost. I'm going to click over to home.html. And now, just like you attach, so in Rails, you have these sort of form helpers, and you just say, hey, it's at new post, and it knows and attaches all those things together. It works a little bit differently in AngularJS, but it's pretty much the same. But here, we're going to use ngModel, just like you do in PhoneCat, just like you do in the tutorial in several places. So we'll do ngModel equals new post dot title, because this right here is the post title. And then here in our input, ngModel equals new post dot content. We don't add this ngModel to tags yet. Tags are a little more complicated, which we'll get at in a minute. But we've attached now this title attribute to the input right here, and this content attribute to the input right here. I'm also going to go ahead and add new post right here in our curly braces so we can see what new post looks like as we change it. In fact, just so we can absolutely see what's going on, I'm going to say the new post is, so we can see. Also, for those of you who remember the requirements for this project, this right here is basically like half of them. We're doing like half of them today. So. But yeah, so let's go back now that we've added these ngModels to these different inputs so that we are now binding the input value to the value in that model. I'm going to go back over now. Whoop, where did that go? Okay, localhost. Refresh this page. You can see the new post is, and then it has this empty tag for title, empty tag for content, empty array for tag IDs. Really cool. And as I type, we can see that our title attribute is changing right down here with new post. And over here, I can say blah, 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 Angular. So now we have this post with title and content. So we're like 90% of the way to creating a new post. Maybe not quite that far, but pretty close. Cool. Awesome. So you can see that updates. And now this gets, so checkboxes in AngularJS and ngRepeats, it turns out, are a little bit more complicated. Since we're a little bit low on time, and I do know that people have interviews going up, we're going to blow through the logic here a little bit quickly. Actually, let me think about this. We'll do tags after. So we're going to go through the other parts that are not tags. This tag part, is not a requirement for completing the project, just because the ngRepeat and the tags gets a little bit more complicated. So we're going to skip this so we can cover the required things. Anyone who would like to go back and talk about tags, we can do that later. And all of the notes are up on GitHub. I'm here all day and tomorrow and all of next week. So we can do questions. We can cover this if we have time later. I just want to make sure that you all get relevant information. So. All right, so we'll go ahead and ignore tags. So let's say we wanted to create a new post to go ahead and save it. Obviously right now we can't save it to our API, but we can go ahead and get that whole sort of thing started, right? And in Rails, if you're creating a new post, so typically in Rails you have your form, and then you'll have a submit button that submits the form, and then it reroutes you to a new page, creates this new thing, does all those things. However, in Rails, if you want to create a new form, a new post, without rerouting. If you want to do it with some AJAX so that you're hanging out on the same page, you submit that and you don't have to refresh. We do that as well, and in that case we create a button that has an event attached. And that's exactly what we're going to do right here. So we have our form. We can see that we're populating this new post. We're creating some new content here, right? We're doing things. So let's go back to our view and let's create a button in our form. We'll say button, and then we do an ng click because we're attaching a click event to this button. Ng click equals, I forget what sorry, I'm going to go back because it's confusing if I call it different things in different places. Submit new post. And then we put close parameters, or close, we put, oh my god, what are the things? Parentheses, hey! All right, sorry. We put parentheses on it because in JavaScript, parentheses are how you say this is a function that we're running right now. So, parentheses on that ng click. I'm going to close this button and say, create a new post. And then do my, end button right there. So, we have the submit new post click that we're going to do. Let's write a function that actually does that. So we'll go back to our layout.js. Again, we want it inside this controller because if it's inside this controller, then the view can access it. So inside this controller, after where we create new post, let's do scope dot submit new post equals function brackets there. And first, just to make sure it's working, let's have it do an alert. Alert. Woohoo! This is what happens all the time when I'm developing. PS. This is what me as a developer looks like. All right. So we have a button that has a click event on it, and right now that click event should give us an alert that says woo or woohoo, whatever. So let's go back, refresh our page. We see our button, create a new post, click on it. Hey, it worked. So we have this function that exists in our controller that our view has access to. So let's make it actually do something with this post information. If I go back here, instead of the alert, so we have scope.posts. Scope.posts is our array of posts. And we have new post. It knows what scope.newPost is because we created this model. It exists as a model, so it's accessible both by the view and by the controller. So all we're going to do right now is let's just do scope.post.append new post. Later on, we'll have logic that will actually have it hit the API and create this post. But we have this here. So let's go back. Let's refresh our page. This, add a title, because remember, we're not persisting information here. So this is a new post. Hi, new post. How's it going? Okay, so we can see these things exist. They're right here in the view, and we can see them. So I'm going to click on the button and see. It doesn't look like anything happened. I can see my day. Turtles are weird. Teaching at Ada. Oh, and why did that not work? Blast. New post. Oh, because it should be scope.newPost. Right, and the reason that I know that it should be scope.newPost is if I go back, it tells me that new post is not defined. I know that new post exists, but in the view it knows it as new post. Otherwise it knows it as scope.newPost. Cool.
Can you go to where scope.newPost is defined in the controller?
Right here. Yeah.
I can't. Oh, there we go. Hierarchies. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, let's try that again, hopefully with more success. Will it work? Please, please, please work. So let's create a new post. Doesn't look like anything's happening up here. Super weird. Teaching at Ada. And again, it didn't work. This is very embarrassing. Why didn't we work? New post. Undefined is not a function. Post.append. Maybe it's push. Yep. Yeah, post.push. I had it right here. I made the mistake of trying to actually type it instead of copy and paste. And I ruined everything. That's okay. Y'all are stuck with me for another week anyway. So, instead of append, it's .push. Thank you whoever said that too. I heard someone saying that, and cool. Also, this is another lesson that you should always have your console open. blah, da 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 da, create a new post. And then it worked. This is a plugin that I have is broken. But yeah, so we can see that it worked. I can go back and do that again. I just wanted to see really fast if there was another error. So, hey, this is gonna work. Probably. Yay. Oh, it's not gonna do exactly what I want it to though, will it? Yep, okay, cool. So eventually, so right now it's just has that same post over and over, right? It's pushing that same post in over and over because we're passing in this model. And as the model changes, the change happens in both directions, right? It happens in the controller, it happens in the view. We could change that. We could go back to our controller and say like var this, var like post1 equals scope.new post, and then tell it to put in post1. Because what we're running into right now is a scoping issue, right? So when I put in scope.new post, I was pulling something from the scope that's held by the controller and the view. And when it's updated, then it continues to update it. So instead of adding like 6 different posts, I'm just changing the same post over and over. However, right here, this new post down here is only known by this function. It isn't known anywhere else. So I can go back, I can refresh, I can add post 1, yay, and then I can add post 2, yay, part 2. And then I can scroll down and only one of them exists, but I will fix that later. Cool. Sorry, yes. There's a hand over there? No? There was one hand over there. I didn't see whose it was. It's being cut off by. So tags, as I said earlier, is more complicated. We're going to go ahead and move on to filters and then come back to tags. I just want to make sure that we're not overloading with confusion. I know this is kind of a dense day and it's a little bit more of a disaster than I thought it would be. And I appreciate your patience, as ever. But yes, tags is in the notes for today. So if you go back and look at the notes for today, you can do that. Also, after we cover filters, we can go back to tags and talk about that more. Yes, in the back? Sure. I'm going to undo the thing I just did because I understand why it does not work, and it would take a lot of time to talk about and fix it. And it's not super relevant because we're going to be hitting the API anyway, which will change what this does. But dupes? Is that, so this is an error that multiple people are getting. Is that a true statement? Raise your hand if you have ng repeat dupes. Cool. I'm going to come take a look real fast, since it looks like there's like 4 people having this. You might have got the figure.
Oh, I think it was only there when we added that variable.
Okay. So it looks like there's an error with the thing that I messed up. So if you undo the last thing and get it back to the way it looks on the board, where you have the scope.new post, does that still have the error?
Yes.
Yes. Cool. We can take a look at what you're doing here. Right. And you refreshed and still got it after. Okay, yes, that's because, so since we're pushing this in by the model as opposed to pushing it in by a separate item, we're putting the model and the repeater multiple times. ng repeat only allows you to do this once. So if you only hit submit one time, if you switch back to this, the scope.post.push, actually even otherwise it should still fix this. But if you refresh your page and create 1 new post, you should not have this error. If you create 2 or more, though, you will have this error. this is an issue that we could go through and take time to resolve. This is an issue that will disappear on Tuesday when we start using the API. So after this, if you are interested in resolving it right now, we can sit down on a one-on-one or like mob it or whatever. But we're going to go ahead and move on just because this is a temporary thing. Once we're working with real data, this doesn't happen. Also, Whitney reminded me to say that if I'm like having lots of chaos and things break, to go, this is an example of what it's like being a real developer, which is also true, right? This happens. This happens when you're in client meetings and showing something off and saying, oh, this is amazing, and then all you get is like 404 or something, like everything is broken. I know it's frustrating from your end. I remember that. But yes, cool. So tags we can talk about later. We're going to move on and talk a little bit about filters. We're going to have the less complex discussion about filters. I had hoped that we would get through some of the material a little faster. A-okay that we're not. I'm glad we're at a pace that works. But we can have a longer or more in-depth discussion either next week or on a one-on-one basis, or you can read through the notes. Filters are awesome. Filters are what made me go, holy cow, AngularJS is amazing. And if you have gotten through the part in the tutorial where you do the search, that's the part that I was like, oh my god, this is amazing, because searches take forever in Rails, and searches in AngularJS are really easy and really cool. So what are filters in AngularJS? Filters in AngularJS, they format expressions. So you can use filters to do things like searches. You can also use filters to do things like capitalize your text, or to turn a date object into a really nice date that looks really good, right? Like, you can do a lot of things with filters. There are a bunch of filters in AngularJS that come out of the box, and there's a lot of really good sort of documentation on them. I have a link, or you can go look around on the AngularJS website. You can also create custom filters that do whatever you feel like doing. Syntax in a filter when you are using a filter in your view looks like this. So you have your expression of filter, so like your array that you want to search through, or your date object that you want to make look like, month, day, year, or whatever. Then you have this pipe. That's what says, hey, there's a filter going on, do some filtering. Then you have the function that you're using to filter. And then you can have an argument. Sometimes you use arguments, sometimes you don't use arguments, and they're added on with these little colons. You can also do multiple filtering if you want to. You can add another pipe and then filter the results of the first filter. We'll go through some examples of this to look at it. It's pretty rad. So yeah, let's filter to do, so we can do a lot of filtering. If we look back at what we have here, we have this kind of gross looking date display. Let's filter that. Let's make that look kind of awesome. So if we go back, and I'm just going to copy this so I don't say the wrong thing, that's terrible and confusing. Post.date pipe date. Okay, cool. So if we go back to our code, to our home.html, and to the place where we list our date, I'm just going to Command F because I don't remember where that is. It's right here. So we have, on mine it's around line 24. It should be near the bottom of your home.html, this part where we have post.date. So let's just add a pipe there. We're going to use the function that comes, okay, cool. We're going to use this function right here that comes with AngularJS. Oh, where did I go? Sorry, guys. Okay, the function date that comes with AngularJS. And we're going to pass it an argument right here. There are a lot of this I pulled directly from documentation. It's just a formatting, like a way to format this date. There are a bunch of different ways, and there's documentation on it, and it would take forever to talk about it. But, I look that up every single time I need to use that. Anyway, so we're going to say we've got this date. We want to filter it. We want to filter it with the date function, and we want to use this format, which it turns out tells you the day of the week. I have no idea why capital E is the day of the week. Whatever. So let's go back, refresh the page. Holy crap, all these terrible looking dates now say Tuesday. We just used our first filter. Yay. So that's kind of awesome, right? Cool, so that's one way to use it, to just take this information that is in place and change what it looks like. It is still the same data. It just so happens that I copied this date object 3 times, so all of them are Tuesday. But if they were all different days of the week, they would say the appropriate day of the week because the data is still there and the data still looks exactly like what it should. We're just changing the format in our view. You can also use it to search, which is, I think, the coolest way to use it. So let's add a search. So what we're going to do when you add a search, so first let's go back up. I'm going to go back up to the top of home.html because I'm too lazy to find where things are on the page. And right under my ng controller, inside that ng controller, so I am telling it where to look for things, I'm going to say search, and then I'm going to create an input, type equals text, ng model equals search. So what I'm doing, I'm just saying search so I know where it is and which one it is. I'm creating this input, this text box input, and I'm doing ng model again, which in this case, since we haven't already created a search object, what it does is it says, okay, whatever goes into this input box, we're just going to call that search. That's our search model now. Cool, so we have our search. And now I'm going to look down to where we repeat posts. For me, it's around line 20. It should be, though, it says ng repeat post in posts is what you're looking for. So now we're going to do add a space. We're going to add a pipe to say we want to filter the results of that. Then we're going to say, oh, let's use the method filter. This is where I tab back to double check syntax real fast. Hooray! Okay, cool. And then we add a colon, search. This right here, this search, refers back to that search model that we created. So the input. We're filtering by the input. So let's go back now that we have created this filter and refresh our page. So we see search. I'm going to look for my day. And it's the only one there. I'm going to get rid of that. Let's search for turtles are weird. Oh, everything else disappeared. All we have is this turtles are weird post. How about if we check for something in the text here? I'm going to say, let's look for, what's down here? In vivera. I don't know what that does. But let's look for it. And it must be in this one somewhere here too. I don't actually know where, and I'm too lazy to actually find, yep, right there. So we now have the 2 posts that do that. So in like 10 seconds, we created this search function that searches through everything in our page. It looks through the titles, it looks through the object here, the content. It's pretty awesome, right? What if we only want to search the title? What if I don't care about the content? I don't want to find every single place that it says like the cat or something, but I want to find a post that talks about, you know, my day. So it's just about the same process. What we do is we go back up to where that search bar is. I'm going to add search by title. We have an input. Our type equals text. Our ng model, however, equals search.title. Let's look too as we do this. Let's see what search looks like. I'm going to put search in there just so we can see what that object looks like as we update it. The last step to make this search work is I go down to where we did the post and posts filter search, and I'm going to add another argument, strict. There are a couple of different third arguments. So the second argument here is this variable that we created. We're telling it filter by this. This third argument, words. This third argument here is a specific argument that the filter method knows about. You can see about it in documentation. Basically what this is doing is saying, hey, when I'm saying search by title, actually look at that title. It's saying don't make this really broad and fuzzy. Look at this specific strict thing that I'm telling you to look at. Okay, so let's look at our output here. So I refreshed the page. Oh, I'm going to go back and do one more thing. I apologize. So you know up where I printed search out, I'm just going to say search is, so that we know where on the page we're showing that, so we can see where that is. We're not looking for it. So I'm back. Search is right here, and we can see it's nothing. It's empty. We haven't started out with something. So I can say, you know, kitty right here. I'm still looking at the broad search, and we can see that search is kitty. Or I can look and search by title and say kitty, and we see that the search is now this object with this key of title and this value of kitty. And since none of our things have this value of kitty, that doesn't show up. So let's see, how about day? I have my day. So if I go down to my day, we can see now day is here, but everything else is filtered out. Yes?
Can we go back and make it HTML?
Sure. Yeah, so the relevant changes that I have made since last time, we created this new search, which is exactly like the previous search, except for instead of ngModel equals search, we have ngModel equals search.title. I added this search is search just so we can see what that looks like. Obviously, this isn't something you'd want to have in your end product. This is one of my favorite sort of troubleshooting diagnostic things to do, in case you haven't noticed when I have printed this all of the other places. But printing things out so you can see what they look like. And then if we scroll back down to our ng repeat posts and posts, we have this pipe saying let's do a filter. We say we want our filter method to be filter. We want to filter by the search object that we have created on the page, and we want that search to be strict, meaning if I say search.title, only look at the titles in posts. Don't look at the body of the post. Don't look at the content. Don't look at the date. Just look at this attribute that I'm naming. What other questions do you have? Yes?
Why does that object thing?
Yeah. So that is because if we go back up, so the thing that you're referring to, the question that you're referring to is when I start doing a title and I'm like, hey, then it says object, object. So this is something you can do things to get around this so it doesn't look like this in this input. The reason that it says object, object is because the ngModel for this search bar is search, right? So before, when we refresh the page, search was nothing. Search was empty value. When we add a title, though, hello, now search is an object. This is how JavaScript sort of displays an object as a string. It's basically JavaScript not knowing how to display that and but wanting to show what this value is because the input is bound to that value. And when I remove that, it still knows that it's an object, right? So I can clear that as well to clear out that object. Other questions? Great. Most of the rest of things that I had on the docket for today were related to tags, so we're not going to do them as a group. We're going to go ahead and end the big lecture. Optionally, if you want to talk more about them, I would love to talk more about them. It does some cool things like creating custom filters. However, I think that that's overly complex, and I appreciate everyone just for given the amount of time that you have and the things that you were doing today. I know that things were a little wonky today, and I really appreciate everyone's patience. So those of you who are working on the tutorial, please do continue to work on the tutorial. Those of you who are working on the project or would like to start working on the project, we did a lot today to help with that. So tomorrow we'll help separate things out into more partials and fix up some of our routing. But now you can add in your posts. You know what posts look like, you know what tags look like. So you can start creating some of your views for that. You can start adding in other searches that you want. We talked about inputting a lot of things, but we didn't talk about inputting a date. So there are a lot of different options that you can take to start sort of forming this app, to start adding those views and working on some of that logic, now that we know how to do these things. We'll work more on those other things tomorrow. Does anyone not know what they should be doing today? Great. All right, thank you all very much. Good luck on your interviews.